So, you want to know who the most morally ethical villain from Dragon Ball is? Who's the baddest boys, and who's the slightly more acceptable boys? Well, I wanted to as well. So I went back through all the movies as well as the original canon villains from the Dragon Ball Z series and created a tier list based on all factors of their lifestyles and past histories. Stay tuned because things get a little controversial in this video. This is solely based on my opinion, so if you disagree with something, please leave it in the comments so I can read it later and maybe laugh a little bit about it. Before we officially begin, let's break down the tier list that we're going to be using for this video. Starting off at S tier. These are going to be considered the most morally ethical villains. Really just stand-up guys that would probably make you say, yeah, I would do the same things if I were in their shoes. Maybe. Next is A tier. These guys have a few moral hang-ups, but hey, they're still leagues better than the guys in the lower tiers. Maybe, just maybe, you can see where they're coming from, you know? Next is C tier. These are definitely villains, there's no doubt about it. They have done their fair share of atrocities and bad decisions, but they're not horrible, you know? Next is D tier. These guys, they're pretty horrible. They're probably just a couple steps away from being galactic terrorists, but they just barely haven't crossed that threshold. Yet. And finally, we land on F tier. These are just pure evil monsters of the Dragon Ball Z universe. They are the Antichrist and will stop at nothing to destroy everything that people hold close to their hearts. With the breakdown finished, let's do this in chronological order, which is starting with our favorite little man, Garlic Jr. Before the movie, he's been sitting in the dead zone for who knows how many years, so this must have done something to him mentally. His father, Garlic Sr., was beaten by the Earth Fighters about 300 years ago, so he's had a generational beef with Earth for a while. Because of this beef, he joins up with the Demon Clan, the Spice Boys, from Makio Star in order to find the Blackwater Mist, a substance that can brainwash all life it comes across, as well as kind of turning people into vampires for some reason. He wants to become the new Guardian of Earth in order to rule over all the brainwashed people that he creates. So he kind of wants to kill Kami and take over Earth, but is he really that bad of a person? I mean, he's been enslaved for who knows how long in the dead zone, so I kind of understand how someone like him could sort of lose his moral compass. So for that reason, Garlic Jr. is going to go into D tier. He's pretty bad to the bone, but not nearly as much as the guys in F tier. Next up is the world's strongest, Dr. Wheelo. He was a world-renowned scientist who really just wanted to push the limits of science and human technology. But he sort of loses his mind as his terminal illness progresses, so he sort of chooses a new path of finding the strongest warrior to implant his brain into. But soon he gets a little too ill and decides to get his robot body that we all know. He hears about Roshi being strong and decides to send a bunch of biomen over to the Kame house in order to abduct him so he could put his brain into Roshi's body. So just off rip, I'm going to tell you that Dr. Wheelo actually goes into A tier, and I'll tell you why. This sort of just is up in the air, but you could blame his evilness on his unknown terminal illness. He also was a successful and harmless man most of his life, although he's not completely morally ethical since he did want to kill Roshi and take his body simply because he was strong and he was a little jealous. Alright, next up we got everybody's second favorite evil Saiyan, Turles. Unlike the first two, this one is actually pretty straightforward. This is because Turles doesn't really have a backstory. I mean, he's a terrorist that runs the Crusher Corp, an organization for space terrorists. His main goal is to turn as many planets as possible into energy with the power of the Tree of Might. Nobody really knows how he got these seeds, but damn are they powerful. With time, these trees can kill all life on a planet and convert it into a singular fruit which gives immense power. So he's definitely pretty evil. Even after realizing that Goku and Gohan are Saiyans, a nearly extinct race at this point, he doesn't care in the slightest and just wants them dead so he can keep being a terrorist. He's a dog. He has no loyalty to anybody. He hates his own men as well as his own race. For that reason, he's definitely going to go into F tier. I don't think this is going to be a surprise for anyone. We're going to take a little trip over to canon for the next character. This is going to be Saiyan Saga Vegeta. I've also been told that this is my most controversial take, so definitely stay tuned for this one. Okay, so he's evil, but I don't think it's entirely his fault. His entire race was enslaved by King Cold and forced to work as exterminators so King Cold can take over vacant planets in order to sell them for monetary value. He was then later enslaved by Frieza after planet Vegeta was eliminated by a meteor or something, I don't really know. This once again forced Vegeta to do tasks against his will. From birth all the way up to age 30, Vegeta has been a slave, so we're going to account for this when we rank him. When he arrived at Earth, he had no problem with Raditz dying and even killing Nappa himself. The two last Saiyans he knew just completely gone, and did he care? Not that much. Little side note, but I personally hate this because I think Nappa as an uncle to Gohan, Trunks, and Goten would have been a really funny dynamic to put in the show. Alright, here it comes. I'm actually going to put Saiyan Saga Vegeta in S tier. Vegeta is our first morally ethical Dragon Ball Z villain. This is because of his living situation. He's never not known enslavement. Even now, I mean, Bulma basically just took over Frieza's position. You really gotta put yourself in his perspective. He's never had a family that cared, he never had any friends, he really didn't know right from wrong until he started living and interacting with the Earthlings. And you also gotta remember that this isn't the nicest or friendliest Dragon Ball Z villains, this is the most morally ethical. Completely different ballgame. Next up is the Namekian that half the Dragon Ball fans don't remember, Lord Slug. This is basically the Turles movie all over again with a different race. Lord Slug flies over to Earth on a spaceship and steals the Dragon Balls from the Earthlings in order to make himself young again. He then uses his ability of terraforming to start destroying the Earth for literally no reason. Here we can make the conclusion that he's literally just a slightly more evil Turles. Turles want to destroy planets for power, but Slug did this purely for fun. He didn't need to. He already got his wish. He could have just flew off to space, but no, he had to challenge Goku and Piccolo. For this, he's also going into F tier. He's just genuinely a scumbag with no redeeming qualities. We can't even use the Vegeta backstory idea because he has no backstory, just evil. Next up is arguably the most famous Dragon Ball Z villain, Frieza. There's a lot to talk about with Frieza, and I'm sure everybody already knows the basics, but he's a pretty evil guy. But one thing people forget about his way of life is that it's all just a family business. He's never known any other way of life. King Cold basically forced the Emperor thing on Frieza. Who knows how different his life could have been if he was casted aside like Cooler. Alright, here it comes. Another important thing to bring up about Frieza is, in the least racist way possible, his race. It's not confirmed, but I'm pretty sure that the Frost Demons are just canonically evil from birth. I mean, look all the way over in Universe 6. Frost had no correlation to the King Cold bloodline, and look how he turned out. Evil. So with all this in consideration, I'm going to put Frieza at D tier. He was evil and massacred millions, but at least he had some sort of reason for it. The next character we're going to be covering is Frieza's badass big brother, Cooler. So Cooler's actually pretty similar to Frieza, so most of the facts carry over, but one big fact changes the tiers of these two. This fact is that Goku killed Frieza, or at least that's what everybody thinks at the time. Little did they know Frieza was still alive at the time, but whatever. This gives Cooler a bit of leeway into doing what he did. I mean, his only brother was killed in battle. It's safe to say that Cooler didn't really care too much about Frieza being dead or alive, but hey, it's definitely worth mentioning. For this, Cooler's gonna go into C tier. He's somewhat justified for what he did, although if Goku didn't throw him into the sun, he was probably just gonna massacre everyone on Earth and leave. The next one up is gonna be the redneck turned Nightkin. This is Android 13. I'm gonna start this one out by saying he's a weird one. He was completely programmed by Dr. Gero's supercomputer with the sole purpose of killing Goku. All he knows is death. But is this really his fault? What if the supercomputer left this info out? How would Android 13 be? We'll really never know. Kinda going off script here, but I think Android 13 would personally be a pretty cool guy. I mean, he was kinda cool in that redneck form before he turned into the blue monster, but you know, with all that into consideration, I believe it's kind of unfair to throw Android 13 in F tier just because he was programmed by a third party to be evil and want to kill people. For this reason, he's gonna go in C tier. Next up is really the only perfect person we have on this list. This is of course Cell. I put Cell after Android 13 because he has a lot of similar points. He was completely programmed by Gero to kill the Z-Fighters, more specifically Goku. But unlike Android 13, he kinda half-assed followed his internal commands. The only reason he absorbed so many humans at the start of his time on Earth was to get energy and evolve. His entire physiology is built to absorb, so it would be like telling a fly not to fly. Another valid point to bring up is, unlike the other main villains of DBZ, he's not nearly as evil. His only goal after he becomes Perfect Cell is to fight strong people. This is basically the same morals as Goku, who's a great guy in everybody's eyes. I mean, he was nice enough to stand in the middle of the Cell Games arena for about 2 weeks in a row just so the Z-Fighters had enough time to make a challenge for him. For this reason, I'm surprisingly putting Cell in S tier. He's just a chill guy, not to mention that he's perfect. Also, the color of S tier is green, so it's basically just calling for Cell to come up over there. But this logic doesn't really work for the next guy. Although he's green, S tier is definitely not calling for him. This is the legendary Super Saiyan, Broly. Z Broly was an absolute animal. Being the most badass villain in Dragon Ball Z comes with its downsides. I mean, he hated Goku for decades on end simply because he cried when he was a baby. Well, I guess he was kind of a toddler, but come on, you still get the point. He also murdered his father and only friend, Paragus, without even a second of doubt. I mean, this was sort of justified since he was going to abandon the planet and leave Broly behind, but still. Well, I'll end this character off in the words of Broly. I'm not a monster, I'm the devil. And the devil is going to sit over here in F tier. The next character on the list is our favorite pirate, Patchy the Pirate, or, Bojack, same thing. Some people are going to be mad, but I'm not going to say a lot about Bojack because honestly, I'm biased. I think this was definitely the worst movie in the Dragon Ball Z franchise. There was just a whole lot of nothing there. He's basically just Turles and Lord Slug all over again, except he's a space pirate. Yeah, the fights were decent, but I just never felt as attached to this character like I did the others on this list. But yeah, he's actually going to go right next to the evildoers on tier F. Alright, I got about 4 characters left on this list, and I'm going to knock 3 of them out right here. This is Majin Buu, Kid Buu, and Super Buu. I'm going to start out with Majin Buu for this, and Majin Buu's a good boy. He loves dog, he loves Satan, not the bad Satan, the martial arts Satan, and most of all, he loves food. The only reason he started turning people into chocolate is because he didn't know if it was morally acceptable or not. Once he learned that from Mr. Satan, and it wasn't, he stopped. Majin Buu is an easy S tier in my opinion. Next, we'll do Kid Buu. He's a demon. He's probably the worst character on this list. He wants nothing but death and misery. He has no friends, only enemies or people he hasn't killed yet. He's basically the Black Air Force One of the Dragon Ball Z universe. Even Frieza fears him. This is the easiest F tier of my life. No, actually, he's so evil, I'm gonna make him a new tier, just for Kid Buu. Finally, Super Buu is a weird one. He's very evil, don't get me wrong, but the humanization of Super Buu, especially in his Buu Tanks and Buuhan form, gives him slightly a less evil edge than Kid Buu. I'm gonna throw him in D tier. Just to not confuse anybody here, the photo is Super Buu, but I'm clumping Super Buu, Buuhan, and Buu Tanks all into one. Alrighty, we made it to the final villain of this video. Everybody's favorite character with absolutely no dialogue, Janemba. I'm not even going to count Fat Janemba as a villain. He's kind of just a fat idiot who doesn't know what he's doing half the time. Super Janemba, on the other hand, knows exactly what he's doing. Murder. I would say that he's morally in between Broly and Kid Buu, which is not exactly somewhere you want to be. But he's definitely there. I mean, he's about as evil as DBZ villains come. He awoke, and the rest is history. He really had no backstory. He was just a bad employee that was in the wrong place in the wrong time, which made himself a scary monster demon. Simple enough. Safe to say, he's going to go in tier F. Alright, that's all the characters I have, so I'm going to quickly revamp this list and try and situate who's the most morally ethical in each tier. It's going to be tough and pretty theoretical, but I'll give it a shot. Alright, this is my official moral ethicality tier list for the majority of the DBZ villains as well as movie villains. This list scales in morality, so for example, in the F tier, Bojack would be more morally ethical than Turles, and vice versa. If there's anything that you would personally change, feel free to let me know in the comments. And hey, you might as well leave a like and consider subscribing while you're doing that. Thanks for listening to my spiel, and I'll catch you in the next SS Jamo Theory video.